Battlecry of Freedom by Ngakma Nor'dzin.
Oh yeah, you must ride. A Ngakpa must ride. A Ngakpa must be like Lingesa. We are warriors of Lingesa's army. We must ride to overcome the savage Tomyors who harm others. And you must teach your students to ride. Ngakpa Chogyam, quoting Kyabje Kunzang Dorje Rinpoche.
Part 1. Overview. Chapter 1. Battle Cry on Horseback. A battle cry is the shout of confidence and solidarity of warriors entering a combat. It is a vocalized assertion of the shared purpose of those involved in a campaign. The battle that is engaged by the heroes and heroines of mind training is to overcome the domination of personal identity. The campaign that is tirelessly embraced by the heroes and heroines of mind training is to fulfill the needs of everyone and everything everywhere. Mind training is presented through pithy, succinct phrases of teaching. The Tibetan for these is tsig. There is not an English equivalent of tsig, which means word, talk, expression, sentence, line, saying, speech, phrase, term, name, utterance. Slogan is the most common word that is used in presentations of mind training, and it is entirely apt. Slogan has Celtic roots and refers to a war cry or battle cry. The yell of the heroes and heroines of mind training is a battle cry of freedom. They gallop into awakening. Mind training is a translation of the Tibetan word Lojong. Lo means mind, intellect, consciousness, wisdom, awareness, and intelligence. Jong means training, refining, purifying, cleansing, studying, and practicing. Therefore, mind training encompasses refining and purifying the mind, as well as training. I first received teachings on mind training at Lamrim Churling in Raglan, Wales in the 1980s. On these courses, we were sometimes encouraged to invent our own slogans as an aid to being present and aware in everyday life. When leaving home, think,
I will walk the path of practice.
Or when closing a door.
I am closing the door to the lower realms.
Or when opening a door.
I am opening the door to a kind heart.
Such reminders can be most valuable, but do not compare to the richness and depth of the 59 slogans of mind training, which express the full depth and breadth of Buddhist practice. The teachings of Buddhism are presented through the medium of vehicles. A vehicle is a complete path of practice and has a base, a path, and a fruit. The base is the starting point. The path contains the methods of practice, and the fruit is the destination and result of practice. In Battlecry of Freedom, I refer to the vehicles of practice from the perspective of Dzogchen. These are the three vehicles of Sutra, Tantra, and Dzogchen. Sutra is the path of renunciation, and its primary form is monasticism. The base of Sutra is the experience of dissatisfaction, and its fruit is the discovery of emptiness. Tantra is the path of transformation and employs visionary practice and Lamai Naljo as its primary method. Its base is emptiness, and its fruit is the recognition of the non-duality of emptiness and form. Dzogchen is the path of self-liberation. Its base, path, and fruit are non-duality. Slogan 22 of mind training says,
If you are capable, even when distracted, you are well trained.
My pithy commentary to this slogan is, If you stay in the saddle of mind training, even when the mind shies through distraction, you are a skillful rider. Reading this, my teachers, Ngakpa Rinpoche and Kandra Dechen, suggested that I could use my horse riding experience as an analogy throughout the book, rather than just for this single slogan. This is how the manner of presenting mind training in Battlecry of Freedom was born.
Kandra Dechen says, Kyabje Kunzang Dorje Rinpoche and his Sangyom, Jomo Sampel Dechen Rinpoche, were keen to watch the Litang races on video when the opportunity arose, and it was delightful to be in their company as they enjoyed the spectacle.
Horse riding is a highly regarded skill in Tibet, particularly in the eastern regions of Golok, Kham and Amdo. Tibetan skill on horseback predates Mongolian prowess in the saddle, and the daring military combats of Tibet in the 8th century were achieved with a well-trained cavalry. The Tibetans also used horses for communication across their vast territory. In Kham, the tradition of skilled equestrianism continues with the summer Litang horse racing festival. Riders demonstrate their skills in the saddle with high-speed races, acrobatic tests of horsemanship, and archery target practice on horseback. I learned to ride as a child. My parents regarded it as a hobby they could not support financially, so I had to pay for it out of my pocket money. I never had the opportunity to have private lessons, but received instruction as part of a group at various different times in my life. In my teenage years, I was asked to exercise a 6-year-old gelding called Whiskey. He was the first horse that I had a real relationship with, and for several glorious summer school holidays we were inseparable. Later I was asked to exercise another horse, Bobby. He had a particularly uncomfortable saddle, so I used to take him out riding bareback. I fell off quite a lot, but this was itself useful experience. I was in my 50s before I was finally able to own my own horse. This was Dee, a 13-year-old Welsh cob mare. I bought her from a riding school where her future was uncertain due to her aggression towards other horses. We moved her from there to a livery yard with a good reputation. A couple of years later, my husband bought a thoroughbred cob cross called Red. Owning 2 horses meant that we needed to find a less expensive livery yard, and so we moved again. Finally, it was necessary to move to a 3rd livery yard, and this is where the horses lived for many years. This yard was also a trekking centre, and we gave Red to them in 2016 after we had retired Dee. She lived to age 27 and died of natural causes in 2017. You will hear about Dee and Red in this book. My experience of the relationship between horse and rider has many correlations to the relationship with training the mind. Excellence in riding requires many of the qualities of excellence in mind training. Ngakpa Chögyam recalled a conversation with Kyabje Kunzang Dorje Rinpoche.
Rinpoche nodded slightly. In Tibet I rode horses. Many Nyingma lamas rode horses. Do Khyentse rode, and so did Dujam Limpa. Is it important for me to ride, Rinpoche? Oh yeah, you must ride. A Ngakpa must ride. A Ngakpa must be like Lingesa. We are warriors of Lingesa's army. We must ride to overcome the savage Tomyors who harm others, and you must teach your students to ride.
Ngakpa Rinpoche and Kandra Dechen often refer to horse riding in their teachings and their experience of receiving riding instruction. They have always seen close parallels, particularly with the role of the Vajra master and their riding instructor. This book also includes stories of their horse riding experiences. When looking at the spiritual path, it can be useful to compare it to a more ordinary experience, such as horse riding, and leave aside the enigmatic and mysterious atmosphere of spirituality. This can make spiritual practice more approachable. Ultimately, deep spiritual understanding is beyond words, because such understanding is beyond the capacity of intellect. This is also true of the deep relationship developed between a horse and rider. Horses are quite different creatures to human beings, yet there is a long history of a meaningful relationship with them. Horses allow people to ride them and willingly respond to their wishes, and this cooperative interaction can be an intimate experience on every level. Once a bond of understanding is established between a particular horse and a particular rider, the experience of riding becomes subtle and pervasive. The rider is in union with the movement of the horse, and the horse is sensitive to the physical presence of the rider. The aids the rider needs to provide the horse to interpret the rider's wishes can become increasingly subtle as the relationship develops. A beginner could flail about on Red's back, kicking, jangling the reins, shouting at him to move, and he might completely ignore them. The moment an able rider put a foot in the stirrup, Red would know that that person could ride and would be alert to them and more willing to respond or to be mischievous. The horse is a large and powerful animal. A horse cannot be forced to cooperate with the rider and will resent the attempt. Similarly, the mind cannot be forced. This is easily discovered through trying to force thought to disappear. The horse is a herd and prey animal and finds confidence through the rider's leadership. The horse will respect the considerate authority of the rider and will respond by giving its best. Similarly, the mind can be trained through perseverance and application. Good riders ask and good horses respond. Good meditators ask and the nature of mind responds. To meditate is to cooperate with the nature of mind, and this opens the possibility of awakening. The rider must ride the horse as it is. The rider must let go of preconceptions, expectations, or aspirations with regard to the qualities of the horse. These will prevent the rider from experiencing the dimension of the horse as it is. Similarly, the meditator must discover as it is, the nature of the mind as it is, free from preconceptions, expectations, or aspirations. The rider must focus on the horse. In this way, the rider is empty in relationship to the form of the horse. Through this relationship, the horse is able to respond fully and achieve its potential. The meditator learns emptiness in order to clarify the relationship with form and thereby discover the non-duality of emptiness and form. Then the mind begins to awaken.